Good evening. So I'm recording this on Monday the 29th. The 29th, yeah, Monday the 29th of September. But I will probably upload it in the morning. I am having internet issues, I am having phone issues. I don't know if it is Mercury in retrograde or what, but here we are. So, how are you doing? I hope you have been well. Today has been a really cool day, very eventual. There's about three things that are on my mind right now. I've written down three, others might join in. So, to begin with, I am sad. I am sad. And we will begin with having a moment of silence to honor, in respect of Dr. Professor Arthur Obel, who passed away. I think it was either early in the morning today, but I heard about it today morning. And the details about it are online, but I was just so heartbroken when I heard about that because I had wanted to meet him. I had wanted to look for him. Like I literally, less than maybe 2, 3 years ago, I had told, I was telling people that I'm really looking for this guy. I want to meet him. But it ended up just being a very casual thing. Like, yeah, I'm looking for this guy. And then somebody like, oh yeah, he used to teach me. I'll get you his number. But I didn't follow up. So I am so sad. I am so heartbroken about that. So let's give a moment of silence just in respect to honor the life of Arthur Obel. Yeah, I'm very sad about that. Um, and when I was thinking about it earlier today, I was thinking that he really, I think for me, he represented so much. I feel like I feel like there's a big part of my soul that has that spirit of his that I haven't lived out enough. And in fact, that's what I was even going to look for him for. Like, somebody to unlock a part of you that you feel you haven't unlocked well enough. So with his passing, I just feel, I feel like I've betrayed myself. I feel so sad. I feel so sad. And it's interesting because I've been talking with a friend, GM Royer, who we talk about that there's people that we want to see, people who are older, people who are advanced in their years, like in their 80s especially, that we're like, oh my gosh, we might not have a lot of time with them. So let's look for them and just, like just pay our respects and just salute, thank you, like just even just saying thank you for what you meant in my life. Thank you for what you illuminated about the world. Thank you for the possibilities you unlocked to me. And so we've been saying that with him for the last 2 years. Like there's someone in particular that we've been saying we need to go see this person, and we haven't gone. So again, when I heard about Professor Arthur Obel's death, I was like, it just came back to me. For those who maybe might not be Kenyan or might be of a certain generation, might not know who Professor Arthur Obel was. He was a doctor. He was very famous in, I think it was it the late 80s and early 90s for coming up with a cure for AIDS, and the cure was called Palomega. And so this at that time, this was such a huge controversial thing that first of all, AIDS was a terrifying thing. Like AIDS was like, forget COVID, forget Ebola. Like I don't even know on what level like the terror that was associated with AIDS was, because it was a terror on so many levels. First of all, the physical level, like in terms of how people's bodies got wasted, like AIDS, people who had HIV and AIDS, like and at the time there was no cure, like their bodies would like literally waste away, like there'd be skin and bones and skeletons, and they'd look so terrifying. So it was terrifying in that sense, but then it was also emotionally terrifying because of all the guilt and all the shame that came up that it came with. Like it's like it was like if you got it, it was like you were evil and you've slept with the whole world. Like it was such a heavy thing. It was such a heavy thing. There was the social ramifications. Like there was just so much to it. So Arthur Obel came in at a time when AIDS was still such shunned, it was reviled, it was seen as a disease for homosexuals, a disease for deviants, a disease for perverts. So like there was such a thick cloud of heaviness around HIV and AIDS. And so Arthur Obel, what really stood out about him was first of all, he decided that he has come up with a cure. And so that was the first thing, the audacity that a person just wakes up, I have a cure, a Kenyan, an African, at the time when the West is still saying, oh, we haven't found cures, oh, we haven't found cures. So about 3 years ago, I was doing some research in the libraries. I was looking at newspapers of the 90s. I was doing compiling a book for a local economist. And so that saw me then looking at a lot of those newspapers, and I came across that the hullabaloo of the Apollo Mega. It was so hilarious. It was so hilarious. Because on one hand, here is Arthur Obel saying, I have the cure, come to me, all you who need it, like Jesus, like I will cure you. Then on the other hand, there's the doctors and the medical associations, the medical establishment saying, no, this guy is fake. Like this Palomega that he's saying is a cure has not been subjected to additional tests by in other laboratories to prove that it is correct. This has not been peer reviewed adequately for it to prove that it's correct. So we please, for the public, desist from buying this, desist from buying this. So, and like for me, what was just so hilarious was how he was so impervious to all that, to all those restrictions by the medical association and his peers. Him is like selling his cure for AIDS, and he was selling it at such wild prices. Like I remember, the equivalent was like something between, it's like between 400,000 shillings and 1.2 million now in those 1990s. And like he was just like, you see in the newspapers today, the medical association has given a warning. No, Palomega is not working. Don't buy it, please. The next day, you're seeing Arthur Bell in the newspapers and talking about how many people he's cured. Like he was just so indefatigable, stubborn, like just impervious to reason. And at some point, he had even appointed himself. He called himself something like the chief medical chief medical practitioner office of the president. Like he had given himself that title. I don't know if he had been given by Moi, but I remember he was carrying that title. And I remember just looking at those articles and laughing my head off, like this guy is just so unmanageable. This guy is just so incorrigible. Like this guy is a rascal. Like this guy, you cannot stop him. Like, and it didn't seem like a con. Like it didn't seem like, he was because scammers and con men are very smooth. He just looked like a person who has decided, and he looked like, but who believed his hype so much that you people who are telling that his cure is not real, he doesn't understand what you're saying. Like, no, I believe, like that's what it seemed like. It was, I laughed. I remember laughing, like I was laughing. I even took so many actually took copies of those clips because I was like, I need to look for this guy. We need to write his book. Like, man. So Professor Arthur Obel. Professor Arthur Obel. What I loved about him, I loved there was a beauty to his. He had a beautiful ridiculousness, or is it a ridiculous beautifulness? That I just find that we don't have enough of in this country. That we are all so held in and so tied to the earth, and we are so living in such terror and fear of imagination and creativity and possibility. And so when this part, like, and I feel like what then happens that when you have such a society that is so repressed, that if at some point people that are the extreme opposite of that are going to come out just to give a balance. And so it seems like he was that. And so for that reason, he has such a special place in my heart. Like just that beautiful ridiculousness. And I say this with all due respect to any people who may have paid money for his healing, his medicine in the 90s, and maybe it didn't work, or maybe it didn't. Like I'm not making fun of you. I'm not making fun of any of those. Also for his family, if they do come across this, I'm not making fun of Professor. I am, for me, this is love. Like my relationship to him was of love, and just love of that resilience, that resilience in the face of, like, he just has no time for your version of reality. Like him is like, this is my version of reality. And the thing is that those in the creative space and in the scientific space, because science is creates things, also in the academic space, they know that ideas and reality is constantly navigated. We are constantly creating it. And so those who have come up with groundbreaking new theories, groundbreaking new innovations, their fight was literally a fight against reality. In fact, Steve Jobs of Apple, there was something that his work, the Apple team used to call, they used to call it the reality distortion theory, because he'd tell them the most impossible things. Like, I want you to do this, 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 and that. So first of all, they're like, you're telling us to do what is like, you're telling us to walk on water now in the equivalent of tech. But on top of that, is like, I'm telling you to walk on water, and I want you to have done this by Saturday at 5 p.m. So I'm seeing those levels of just ridiculousness and absurdity, that not only is he telling you to do the impossible, on top of that, he's telling you to do the impossible at a completely impossibly time period. But guess what? Thanks to that, things emerged. Like, that is how innovations happen. So I really just have a special place in my heart for Professor Arthur Obel. He represents the spirit of relentless creativity, and just creativity without apology, creativity without like just shameless creativity, and just the shameless drive to try to innovate. And of course, there does tend to be um, I don't use the word, but yes, there does tend to be like accidents and occasional people getting caught up in the melee of all that, unfortunately. But the number of people that end up getting help from the eventual innovation, if it does prove successful, end up like is way much. Like, you know how in war, what I'm looking for, the word that they use, like, is it casualties? Is the word casualties, like that thing of in war, like you've gone to invade the enemy force, and then maybe sadly there was a group of children, and they end up getting hurt. So those casualties. But there will be I think there's always will be casualties. And I think maybe for innovators, it's just that thing of being okay with, you know what, in this thing that I'm doing, I'm going to break eggs, and it's okay. Let me just make peace with breaking eggs. And that really, for me, is what I remain with, in terms of, as I think about Professor Arthur Obel, that he was not afraid to break eggs, because you cannot make an omelette if you have not broken eggs. So that's the first thing. I'm just really honoring him. Right, that's the first thing. The second thing on my mind is something I was having a discussion about: identity, and how I've never thought about it, but when we get insulted, we actually insulted on the level of our identity. And I've never really thought about it, but how identity has privilege. Like the identity we choose it because it gives us benefits. There's a privilege, there's a benefit, there's a power it gives to us. So I was talking to um, my former supervisor on the master's program, and and I was talking about my Meru identity, and how I have never introduced, like, even at the back of my mind, think of myself, I'm a Meru woman. Like, never. Like, that is not an identity for me at all. Yeah, yes, my parents are Meru. Yes, my background, my family is Meru. But in my head, I am not Meru. Like, I don't have that affiliation. In fact, when I was doing politics, um, um, I used to get told, like, oh, you're a Meru woman. Oh, you're embarrassing us. Oh, what are you doing? And today is when I look back, I realize, oh my gosh, no wonder I actually never tried to look for affinity with this Meru identity, because there's a way in which an identity can be a bit of a prison, can be a bit of a prison, and can even be weaponized to punish you. And I think I always knew that because there's a certain thing about the Meru culture. And Meru, beautiful people, you're wonderful people, but uh, maybe in future, not right now. But I think it's about values and what we value and where we feel home. It's about home. Where do I feel home? So I've never felt, for me, the Meru culture, Meru community, that's not home for me. Home, I feel home in other identities. I feel more home in my identity as a woman. I feel more home in my identity as an innovator, as in my identity as maybe an activist, my identity as a writer, as compared to my identity as a Meru. Um, because when I was being told, looking back, that they were trying to push values on me that I was not even interested in owning, like being a Meru woman and what it means. Which is kind of like, no, I don't know if I want to open that. But so those are a way, like they were trying to almost like punish and shame me, like, oh, you're not behaving like a good Meru woman. Oh, but luckily in my head, that was never something I was looking forward. So it was whatever. You just take your madness somewhere else. So this topic of identity and privilege, like we take on the identities that give us freedom, that give us privilege, that give us power in the world. In fact, I was thinking that I wonder to what extent, if I was Kamba, for example, I would actually be very proud as a Kamba. Why? Because when you think of Kambas, like what comes to mind is that thing of very spiritual, with all the witch doctors and waganga, and also very erotic and very at ease with sexuality, and just there's I feel so. For me, I think that my value system feels a lot more free. If I was in the Kamba community, for instance, I think I would be so proud to say I'm a Kamba woman, I'm a Kamba, like, because it would then be a badge of honor that who I am, the values I espouse, and this title, this identity, there's congruence versus who I am, and now this Meru identity, which is like a bit like there's a lot of it's a very masculine, very somber, very stoic, very warrior spirit. And there is an aspect of me that's about standing on business. And maybe it's that some of these things, again, like I said, are time related. So right now I will revel more as a Kamba, like I would feel a stronger sense of identity with that. Um, yeah, I think the last thing that I want to talk about. So today was the beginning of the East Africa Civil Society Summit. It was really good to see old comrades from many years back. And in a way, it felt like a continuation of Zinduka, the Zinduka festival. Those who know about it, that had been happening some years back, and just really bring the whole East African community together. But Zinduka had a bigger focus on culture as well as human rights. But this particular summit has more of a focus on human rights. Although the last day there will is actually given to looking at culture and um, uh, culture and what's the word for it? Integration, integration on a citizen level. So today, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there has been that happening, and I have gotten insights. I have gotten insights and seen. This is me wondering if to what extent I want to talk about what I want to talk about, because it's something that's cooking. That's something that's in progress. That's a work in progress. But which is, I think I'll talk about it tomorrow. I think I'll talk about it tomorrow. Yeah, so that I can also I can sleep early tonight. Yeah, I guess that's it for now. And but it was really, 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 really good. A lot of insights, super mind-blowing insights, super mind-blowing. Maybe I'll just touch on it, and that's about the question of the civic space, the shrinking civic space. And one of the speakers talked about how he had done research on the Arab Spring, and he talked about how really the background to the Arab Spring um, was a shrinking civic space in those places, whereby people did not have an outlet for all the um, frustrations that they were going through on a daily basis. Very responsive, unresponsive governments, and so you just feel like you're pushed to the edge. And so the quickest thing is to, like, let's topple the government, and that's what we've been seeing in the last couple of years, even in Kenya last year, 2024, even this year, 2025. Recently, what we saw in, was it Nepal, as well as, was it Baghdad, Indonesia, like a lot of these places, uh, a lot of the post post-colonial nations, but also we're also seeing a lot of these agitations in Europe. It's no longer just Africa and the third world and that. And so, like, we are at a place where we need to realize where we are and we need to take action on it. So maybe I'll talk a bit more about that tomorrow, which is going to be Tuesday, probably the same day that I'm going to upload this. But that's it for now, and I wish you a wonderful day. Bye.